Major League Baseball. The full season starts this week on Thursday. Brian Leonard's going to break down a couple over-under season win props. And, of course, there's still the NHL as well. Our resident Canadian, Carmine Bianco, will talk some NHL today. And in between, Teddy and I will also weigh on in the NBA and college hoops as well. Let's get right to it. It's a loaded show for Monday. And as I mentioned, Brian Power is going to start it off with some college and pro basketball. Brian, welcome to the show. Hope you had a great weekend, my friend.
Yeah, back from Turning Stone, upstate New York with the gang. Wish a few more underdogs would have covered over the weekend, obviously. But I think all in all, it was a fun time with great people. It was great to meet people that watch the shows. Obviously, great to hang out with my fellow WagerTalk.com handicappers. Just a good time, man. Just getting back into it now. A little bit of the calm before the storm. Like you mentioned, baseball starting. We've got a few days to process what we saw in the NCAA tournament the last few days. NBA winding down. So still a very good time to be a bettor.
No doubt. Let's get into some analysis, and we'll start with a Sweet 16 matchup, which I like to talk about. We're already in the Sweet 16. And of course, I'll do a full breakdown of what we saw this past weekend in What Bettors Learned in just a few moments. But let's start with this Sweet 16 matchup for, is it Thursday or Friday? It is Thursday. And that would be Alabama and North Carolina. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen right now. I'm seeing the Tar Heels -4. There are 4.5 starting to pop up. Highest total on the board for the Sweet 16, 173.5. Bettors expecting pace, or bookmakers expecting pace in this one. How do you break it down? Tar Heels, Crimson Tide, Sweet 16, major showdown.
Yeah, third game in a row here, Teddy, in the tournament that we're at a historically high total involving Alabama. I believe these three totals that we've seen involving the Crimson Tide have been the three highest in the last 30 years of the tournament. Obviously, with a dance partner like North Carolina, it is very reasonable to expect a lot of points. I'm not shocked at all to see this total so high. But I want to talk about the spread. Of all the Sweet 16 spreads, this is the one that jumped out to me because, believe it or not, I personally have this game line closer to a pick'em. I get that Bama's off a pretty ugly win over Grand Canyon. I saw a lot on Twitter as that game was going down the stretch. Oh, my God, this game is ugly. Bama can play no defense. I get that. The defensive end has been a major issue for Nate Oates' team all year. They've had a pretty favorable path to get to the Sweet 16. Not only do they play a 12 seed yesterday in Grand Canyon, but I thought the first-round matchup against Charleston, another team who's deficient on the defensive end, was a good break for the Crimson Tide. But let's look at this from a numbers perspective, guys. Should Bama really be getting the same number of points that Michigan State did against North Carolina? I would say no. If Alabama played Michigan State tonight on a neutral floor, I would have Alabama as a 2-point favorite. Now, North Carolina obviously covered that number against Michigan State in the last round, so we have to bump them up a little. But I'm not downgrading Bama because they covered both spreads over the weekend as well. It's worth noting Tar Heels went down by double digits early against Sparty. Credit to them for coming all the way back and pretty quickly because Michigan State, if you look at the stats that Evan Maya shares, the kill shot numbers, Michigan State's a hard team to come back against when you're down double digits. But tip your cap to North Carolina. They did it. Obviously, what's ultimately going to determine the outcome of this game, guys, is Bama's three-point shooting. We know they're going to put up a high volume. This under Nate Oates, year in, year out. This is a team that ranks near the top of the country in rim and three rate. They don't take a lot of mid-range jumpers. Either they're trying to get the ball inside at the rim or they're taking threes. They shot the lights out from three against Charleston. They did not against Grand Canyon, 8 of 31. I would expect some positive regression from that number. North Carolina opponents, talk about regression. I don't know when their negative regression is coming, Teddy, but for the season, outside of Chapel Hill, North Carolina opponents have hit an absurdly low 29.5% from three. That is crazy over the full course of the season. And it's not like North Carolina is great at defending the arc. I've seen all year long teams missing wide open shots from three. One last point I'll make about North Carolina. Over the last month or so, not a lot of travel. Their first NCAA, their first two games in the tournament were in Charlotte. ACC tournament was in D.C. They've played only 2 true road games since Valentine's Day. Those were against Virginia and Duke. I would argue, other than Duke, Bama's better than everyone in the ACC. A pure numbers play. It is not on my card yet, but I wanted to share with the folks that I think this number is off by a couple points. And given what you said, how the line was moving, Teddy, I wouldn't be in a rush to bet it just yet. I'd wait to see how high we go.
So You said that you were surprised that North Carolina is laying a comparable number to Alabama compared to what they laid to Michigan State. Just looking at Ken Palm's got Alabama ranked 2 points higher than Michigan State. And I agree with that assessment. I think Alabama is better than Sparty. Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So then what's the disparity?
Well,
you're looking at me like I have 26 heads right now.
No, I'm saying I was surprised. Yeah, and I think this number should be like 1 or 2, not 4, which is what I'm saying. The Michigan State line closed at 4. And Alabama, I have better than Michigan. Several, like you said, I have them 2 points better than Michigan State. So I think this number should be shorter than the number we saw for the North Carolina-Michigan State game.
So what do you think the markets are seeing that we're not seeing?
I don't know. I think it's a combination of North Carolina's a top seed. They looked good. Alabama, we all know the narrative's out there about how shaky they are defensively. If you look at their losses, that is what is scaring me, why I did not rush to bet this, even though I think the current number is too high. When Alabama loses, they give up a ton of points. It tends to be the good teams. And North Carolina can score. I think you and I would both agree there. I don't know. I think it might be public perception that Alabama right now, people don't want to bet this team with the defensive liability. But again, like I said, from a pure numbers perspective, Teddy, I do think this number is 2 points too high.
Yeah, what's interesting, Brian, of course, we talk about Alabama's defense. They were like, I think, 117 entering this weekend, entering yesterday. They're now 101. So they're almost out of almost in the top 100 defensive efficiency. So, and I point that out, guys, because I mentioned this in some of my Fade the Public videos this past week for the tournament. You have to go all the way down to top 50 for Ken Palm. They were the worst remaining. Kentucky, Illinois were up there as well, like high 90s, low 100s. We saw, what happened to Kentucky early. But Grand Canyon was in the top 40 defensively, or they're actually 33rd now. And we saw them somewhat limit Alabama for the majority of that game yesterday, and they are obviously recovering for a good amount. North Carolina is 6th defensive efficiency. They've been a top 10 defense basically all season, a lot better than they've been in years past. So I think that'll be the X factor in this game, is if that Carolina defense can slow down what really is maybe the best offense in the country. Alabama, North Carolina, Sweet 16. All right, Brian Power, we got the NBA still on a daily basis, about a month away from the playoffs here. What's something you're looking at tonight in the NBA?
Yeah, a lot of ugly lines on a daily basis in the NBA, guys. I want to talk about the Sixers and the Kings here. My starting point is something I have discussed on this show, the NBA Tip-Off show as well, many times previously. That is, I just don't trust the Sacramento Kings as this large of a favorite. To that point, you go back to February 1st as a favorite of 4 or more. The Kings are 1-9 against the spread. They've lost outright 6 times. The most recent outright loss was to the Washington Wizards, certainly a team that you would have expected had folded their tent for the rest of the year. They were 11-point favorites in that game, where Sacramento, as a home favorite this season, Sacramento 10-19 against the number, outscoring opponents by just 1.9 points per game. So they've been big money burners in this role, laying points at home. They're not even winning by much of a margin at all. I understand situation, not great for Philadelphia tonight. It's the second night of a back-to-back, third road game in 4 days. They generally have not performed well this season, often outright upset like they had yesterday. But when I compare them to some of these similarly priced dogs on Monday's card, again, Teddy, I know you've talked about it in the past, these teams that are bad, they just phone it in. It's over. There's no value in betting them, even at these inflated numbers. Well, Philadelphia's still got a lot to play for, right? That they should be looking to avoid the play-in round. They want a top 6 seed in the East. And it's not a great spot for Sacramento either, guys. Only 1 day off after 3 straight games out East. Oh, by the way, first time these teams met this year, Philly won by 19 as a 1-point favorite, and that was without Embiid, who obviously isn't playing here either. It was also the Sixers' 10th straight win over the Kings. Not saying they're going to make it 11 in a row straight up, but I think Philadelphia capable of keeping it close against a Kings team that just simply is not trustworthy in this price range.
So I agree 100% that Sacramento is not trustworthy in that price range. That said, I didn't take Philly tonight. Philly wasn't on my short list tonight because when you talk about spots, I worry about the spot for the Sixers. All right. They had Harden, the rematch with Harden yesterday, who forced his way out of Philadelphia. That was a big game for them. Up next, a rematch with Harden and the Clippers. And here's this little game in Sacramento in between on the second of back-to-backs. How confident are you that Philly shows with their A game tonight? Because I was really worried that this might be one of those games that the Sixers don't necessarily let it hang out on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, that is kind of the sticking point for me. Why I haven't quite gotten there yet as a client release. But to me, it's it is more of a fade of a Sacramento. With Philadelphia, Teddy, I agree. I mentioned earlier that they struggle typically off a straight-up dog as a win. I think it's like 2-6 against the spread this year or something like that in that role, something comparable. I just think, let's go back to what I said near the end of the breakdown. This is a team that needs wins to get back into the top 6. I get that they're in between two bigger games, but they can't afford to just punt games when you're trying to lock down a top 6 spot in a conference, which is something very important to keep an eye on this time of year.
It's Brian Power talking the NBA. Of course, Sweet 16 resumes on Thursday. We do have CBI, NIT, some other stuff going on this week as well, but a lot of NBA. In fact, there's 11 games tonight on Monday, so be sure to check out the NBA Tip-Off Show. And we have a new format. We're doing some earlier shows and videos as well, so a lot of NBA content here on WagerTalk TV. Click subscribe and hit the bell as well so you never miss out when shows and videos go live for free here on WagerTalk TV. And Brian Power, you're seen on many of those shows as well. You've got a nice little promo code for us this week, Power30. Tell us about that.
Yep. I mentioned there's a lot going on. You guys mentioned baseball just right around the corner. So code Power30, you get $100 off a 30-day all-access pass. That'll get you the rest of the NCAA tournament, rest of the NBA regular season, and obviously the beginning of the MLB regular season. I got off to a great start last year in MLB, guys, 34-16 over the first month of the season. NBA, 57% for the year, up 33.2 units as we hit down the home stretch. And I've already got maybe a play or two circled in this year's Sweet 16 that I'm going to fire on. Today, it might be a pass. I don't know. I'm still breaking down the NBA card. I want to get some more clarity on these lineups. But trust me, many big plays coming the rest of the week. NIT, you don't want to sleep on that tournament either. We're 75% in that going back to last year. So WT.buzz/BP, like it says on the screen. Check it out. Use that code Power30 to take $100 off a 30-day all-access pass.
And if you want some more college basketball talk from Brian Power, and why wouldn't you? He and Drew Martin and Joe Ranieri will be on the college basketball show at 2 o'clock Eastern today on Monday. So check that out here on WagerTalk TV. And we're going to look at baseball in a few minutes with Brian Leonard. He's going to have 2 season win totals for us. The full season starts this Thursday in MLB, so stay tuned for that. But Teddy, we got to recap the weekend first. And you do this during the football season, the quadruple plus 2 Bs. And hey, as we said at the open, it was a pretty good week for the weekend for the favorites. So I'm wondering if it was bad for the books.
Well, let's talk about it. And I just went through game by game. This isn't a proper BB. We're not doing bad bets, bad beats, bad for the books. We are going to go through an analysis of what just happened this past weekend and to start Saturday morning, at least here in Vegas, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon for you guys. Dayton, Arizona. Late Dayton money drove the line down, 9.5 down to 9, 8.5. And, of course, the Wildcats won by 10. So Arizona covered by a point and a half. Game stayed under by less, 2.5. And that's the way it went for favorites all weekend long. 15-1 straight up, 11-5 against the spread for the chalk in the round of 32. Gonzaga was the chalk. Kansas led at the half, and then Gonzaga won by 21. The game went over. On the last bucket, another total that went right down to the wire. North Carolina, easy win and cover versus Sparty, easy over wire to wire in that ball game. Iowa State tied at the half against Wazoo. They pulled away in the second half. Cyclones and under, both by less than 5 points, a couple of buckets. Tennessee went 3 of 25 from three-point range against Texas. The under in that game, never in doubt. Longhorns win by only 4. They were minus 6.5. Didn't get the money thanks to that poor three-point shooting. Illinois destroyed Duquesne before halftime, minus 9.5. They led by 25 at the break. The game snuck over late. That was not the only game that was over by halftime this weekend. I think the worst beats of the weekend came in Oregon-Creighton. I lost that one on the side. That was fun. If you had the under, I think it might have been worse. The Ducks literally covered the entirety of regulation and the entirety of the first overtime. And then Creighton scored the first 15 points of the second overtime. It's the only game, only college basketball game I lost all weekend. What are you going to do? You can't win them all. Dead nuts under the whole game. How under? It was a dead nuts under through an overtime. Under could not, however, survive the second OT. Tough beats for the dog and under bettors in that one. On Sunday, Colorado plus 4, bet up to 4.5 on game day. That half point mattered. Stress. That was a stressful finish. Then we lost by 4. The over cashed despite no scramble points at the end of that ballgame, or limited scramble points at the end. Utah State, they hung tough with Purdue for about, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Purdue pulled away before halftime and ran them out of the gym in the second half. Favorite and over both cash by 20-plus points. Duke was a 5% big ticket for the clients and I yesterday. That's the way a big ticket is supposed to look. That game was done by halftime. Total, 147.5, 148, 148.5, bounced around, landed 148. Betting skills, not capping skills, the difference. Then again, only 5 points scored by both teams combined in the last 3.5 minutes. That was a rough beat if you had the over 148.5. You didn't get the best of the number. Clemson and under wire to wire versus Baylor. Oh my God, a dog won outright. A major conference dog, but still. ACC sends 4 teams to the Sweet 16. ACC 4-0. And of course, the Big East 3-0. The 2 conferences that did really well this past weekend. Tough beat for Grand Canyon backers. I mean, look, their offense was inept down the stretch of that for most of that ballgame. But they still led by 3 with under 6 to play. And then Bama outscored them 17-3 down the stretch under wire to wire in that one. UConn blew them out by halftime. Yet the side came down to the title minute. Like the side came down to the last minute, and the total did too. UConn and under survived and got the money. Houston, Texas A&M bounced around the number for the entire game. There was lots of over money. That was spot on. It flew over. Then Houston blew an 11-point lead with less than 2 minutes to play, fouling 3-point shooters, turning the ball over, can't get a rebound. A&M sinks the tying 3 with a second left on the clock. That being said, Houston still won the game in overtime. They had 4 starters fouled out, gave up 26 offensive rebounds. Hard to cover NCAA tournament games like that. The finale, San Diego State crushed Yale. That game was over by halftime. Yale never made any kind of second half run. Favorite and over. Mountain West got 6 teams into the dance. Only 1 got to the Sweet 16. 1 6 seed, 1 11 seed, and every other seed 5 or lower. All the number 1 seeds, all the number 2 seeds advance. Chalky weekend after True Madness in the opening round. So that's what I learned this weekend. Steve, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, Teddy, it's the 5th time since 1979 that all the top 8 seeds have made the Sweet 16. So it's happened 4 other times, which, for all 8 to make, it's a little unusual, just random variance. But there's still what's funny, too, is last year was the first time ever that there were no number 1 seeds in the Elite 8, I believe. So it's the extreme opposite of what happened last year. What do you read into that? Just random variance, or is there something that's changed?
So when we looked at the entirety of the field going into the tournament, there were a handful of teams that stood out as better than everybody else. All those teams managed to survive in advance. Every one of them, pretty much, with maybe Auburn as the exception of a team that might have had a chance to cut down the nets, or Kentucky. But the majority of those teams are still alive. And when the class teams survive their tests, when they hit the shot at the end, when the other team misses the 3, those are the teams you expect to be there, right? When class teams lose, they either play really poorly or they run into someone that's shooting hot. That didn't happen a whole lot this past weekend. And that's why all the number 1 seeds and all the number 2 seeds still alive. Maybe the tournament did a better job of seeding than we gave them credit for, given that all the top seeds have survived in advance.
Yeah, and last year, don't forget, it was the first 4 seed to win the tournament. In fact, 19 of the previous 20 champs had been 1, 2, or 3 seeds until UConn last year as a 4 seed won it. But if you look at the Ken Palms, at the end of the year, they're number 1. Everybody looks back at that. But I archive them when the tournament starts. UConn was the number 4 team in the Ken Palms when the tournament started last year. So they were vastly underseeded by that metric. What's interesting, though, Teddy, is that Auburn was number 4 this year as a 4 seed. And we will not get that UConn-Auburn matchup this week that I thought very well might be the team that makes it all the way to the finals. Instead, we get a rematch of last year's championship game, San Diego State and UConn, this week on Thursday for the Sweet 16. But we'll have plenty more college basketball talk every weekday at 2 o'clock Eastern here on the network. And then, of course, throughout the week here on WagerTalk Today as well. All right, we've talked some basketball. Let's talk some baseball now. Take out the K, take out the T, and you get baseball, not basketball. Can't say it's the season opening here on Thursday because MLB decided to play 2 games in Korea last week that nobody probably knew about at 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. Pacific time. Dodgers-Padres split out, by the way, those 2 games. But the full card does start this Thursday, so you have plenty of time to get in on the other 28 teams for over-under season wins. So let's bring on Brian Leonard, baseball expert. In fact, he's such of an expert, he traveled from Vegas to Florida just to go to some spring training games. So, Brian, welcome to the show. What have you learned so far this spring? And lead us off with a futures winner for us here in the baseball season.
Yeah, I've learned that there's a lot of good young talent that's coming up to Major League Baseball, which figures into one of my over-unders that we have going today. I gave you a couple American League last week. I had Baltimore over. I had Cleveland under. If you want to search out last week's episode last Monday and get our analysis for that, you can do so. Had a lot of success in baseball over the years. Baseball season, as you mentioned, right around the corner for just about everybody. But Wednesday, first pitch starts. I'm going to be joined with Tokyo Brandon. And Thursday, Trigger and I are going to break down the baseball card. So first pitch right around the corner. But let's take a look at a couple of National League over-unders as we take a look at the Washington Nationals here. You got a number of 66.5 for Washington. And I guess I'm under the impression that the Washington Nationals are going to be better than what a lot of people think. And that's because I handicapped the entire 40-man roster. I handicapped the minor leagues, where a lot of guys only look at the 26-man roster in breaking down the season. And we all know the guys that start the season don't necessarily end the season for a lot of these teams. Most starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, most teams use 10 different starting pitchers. Right now, you got a 5 or 6 man rotation in some sorts. So you got to take a look at the rest of the players in that organization when you're breaking down total season wins. And we like the Nationals. I think the future's bright in the nation's capital. Nationals look to have a solid future. Other than the Baltimore Orioles, the Nats have the most stacked Major League ready players on the horizon. Brady House, James Wood, Dylan Cruz, and Robert Hassel III are all just one injury away from making the jump to the big leagues. This is an offensive club that had big breakouts last year from C.J. Adams and Lane Thomas, and the team continues its offensive resurgence. There was a lot of games last year when the weather warmed up where this Nationals team was putting up a lot of runs. I expect more of that the same this year. First thing you think about with the Washington Nationals is the problem for the pitching staff. And I agree. Josiah Gray and Mackenzie Gore are solid contributors that I think are going to get better as the season goes on. But they need more in their starting rotation. That's the weakness. But we do like the moves the bullpen has made, brought in with Derek Law and Matt Barnes, 2 veterans who have proven themselves when healthy in the past. I think that's going to strengthen this bullpen, which is featured on the back of the bullpen, solid with Finnegan, Harvey, and Rainey getting the job done. So while Washington doesn't have well-known talent on the pitching staff, I think they're going to be improved this year. And when you take a look at the rest of the division, the Mets are going to be down this year. The Marlins look to be taking a step back because of injuries this year, and they've lost some bats in the offseason. But it gives us faith that the Nationals can surpass this total wins number. And keep in mind, this is a more balanced schedule this year, which means less games against the Braves and the Phillies, in our opinion, 2 of the best 3 teams in the National League. Obviously, the Dodgers are there with them. So I think that all adds up to playing the over here with the Nationals. Over 66.5 is our best bet in the National League.
So, Brian, I listened very carefully to the analysis that you've been giving and some of the other guests have been giving when it comes to MLB win totals. Because in my mind, I tend to look, hey, when guys who've done their offseason work better than me are telling me this is a bet on or bet against teams, those are bet on or bet against teams right from the get-go. To me, this feels a little bit different. This feels like Washington, you think, might as a chance to get better as the season progresses once they start calling these guys up. So would you say that the Nats are a safe fade in April? Or is this a team that you think right from the get-go has a chance to come out and really start pulling off upsets and making money at underdog prices? Because I can't imagine we're going to see Washington favored in a whole lot of games.
Yeah, I don't believe that they're a fade. It's hard to tell. Every team is different each and every year. A lot of it has to do with what's going on behind the scenes. We'll talk about that when I give out my underplay. But yeah, you're right. Once these guys start to make it, and I don't think any of them are going to have more than maybe 200 at-bats in the season. So these are guys that will be coming up later in the season, unless there's injuries. Like I said, if we find injured players, these guys will get up there right now and be able to play. But yeah, I'm in agreement. They're going to be a better team as the season goes on than they are when they start the year.
He's playing over my Washington Nationals, 66.5 wins. A very low bar for a team that won the World Series. What was it, just 5 years ago? Pretty remarkable how quickly they unloaded that franchise, Florida Marlins style. Drew Martin appreciated what they did here in D.C. Let's talk about a team. I mentioned two teams played 2 games last week, Dodgers and Padres. But the beauty of the new sports books around the country, around the world, is you can get the updated season win totals. They don't hold back. They'll adjust it on a daily basis at some books. So the Padres-Dodgers still alive. Teddy had an opinion, I know, on the Dodgers over. I agree with that, by the way, Teddy. I've talked about it as well. Normally like the Nationals, we like to play the lowest totals over, the highest totals under. But the Dodgers are so stacked with their rotation offensively in the pitching that it's just the regular season's a different beast than the postseason. And, Brian, they did split out, though, in Korea last week. Dodgers won a fairly low-scoring game. I think it was 5-2, and then a shootout. What was it, like 15-11 or something? The Padres won the next night. What do you take of that trip last week, and what's your take on the Padres overall? A definite underachiever last season. Did they get back on track this year?
You mentioned the Dodgers, and I've done shows with Tokyo Brandon. He loves the Dodgers. He thinks they're going to set the all-time record. Well, this all happened before the Shohei Ohtani situation, so we don't know what's going to happen. I did my first big fantasy baseball draft yesterday, and the guys played it off as if it's nothing going to happen to them. So these guys know more about baseball than just about anybody out there. If you're betting baseball on a regular basis, you know that. So they're assuming Ohtani is going to play. But my main concern, and I told this to Brandon about the Dodgers, is what will be their motivation to win. They're going to have a huge advantage. They won the division last year by 16 games. I think they're going to win by more than that this year because I think the Arizona is a little bit overrated slightly. But the Dodgers brought in all these guys, and they've already suffered through a lot of injuries. So injuries make it hard. But you got to have guys down in the minors that can do it. And the Dodgers had that ability. They can go out and buy players. They can go out and trade younger players. So they're going to win the division. But what's the motivation later in the season? That's my only concern. But I do think they're a great team. Getting back to the Padres, I'm going to play the Padres under 83.5 here. The Padres really underperformed last season after bringing in high-priced talent. And the word was that the players had a hard time getting along behind closed doors. So the player mix never played up to their talent level. Now with some of those big egos gone, we get a much less talented team here in San Diego. Sure, Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado remain, and we like Ha-Seong Kim and Luis Campusano, the catcher. But any starting lineup that still has Jerickson Profar and Tyler Wade in it is something we want to avoid at all costs. These are 2 guys that have floated around, didn't even make starting lineups, and I'm surprised that Profar is in the starting lineup. And Tyler Wade's never started more than a few games everywhere, so they're a limited offense when it comes to that. And from a pitching standpoint, we really like Michael King, who came over from the Juan Soto deal with the Yankees. But he was a relief pitcher for most of last year before he started. And so his innings limit will be lower because of that time. They don't like to go too far over the innings you used the prior year, so we make it 20% above that. But I like him. He's a good addition. Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove are solid, but injuries are starting to take a toll on both of them. Bringing in Dylan Cease could be a big boost, but considering no contenders wanted to trade for him is a sign he may be at the end of his usefulness. Josh Hader was a dominant closer. He moves on. So the bullpen depth just isn't the same as it was a year ago. And add it all up, we can't see the Padres with a winning record. The Giants are improved. The Dodgers, as we mentioned, could dominate the league. So San Diego will have to take advantage of a really bad Rockies team to get anywhere near this number. I was surprised that they gave them out as a winning record at 83.5. I thought it was going to be about 80. So I'll play the Padres under the 83.5.
So when we're talking about MLB season win totals, one of the things that I tend to focus on is the team going to be a buyer or a seller at the All-Star break. You can get at the trade deadline. You can get a good read on a team for 100 games, but if all of a sudden they flip the switch or make moves you weren't expecting, it can be a whole different team than you thought in August and September, and that can leave the best planned and the best well thought out season win total in trouble. Are the Padres likely to be sellers at the deadline this year? Are those contracts, all those contracts that they have, those long-term deals, are they movable? Or are they just stuck with all these guys and they might end up buying at the deadline? I mean, what do we think of San Diego come July?
Yeah, I think San Diego's in the same boat as the Mets were. You bring in some really talented players, high salaries, and they don't work out. I can't see them trying to increase their payroll this season by doing that. I could see them trading Machado. I don't think they're going to trade Tatis. I think he's too young. But if they can get something out of Machado, they'll do it. He's starting to get his injuries. He was hurt a lot last year. So that is one thing that I take a look at. And you're right. You got certain teams, like I talked about it when I did the Baltimore Orioles. They've got so many good minor leaguers. If they could get another high-level starter to come in, they'll do that. I don't see the Padres or the Mets doing anything similar to that this year, which is why I think both of them go under the total.
Brian Leonard talking some baseball, and Brian mentioned that the MLB First Pitch show starts later this week on Wednesday, the day before the MLB full season begins. So check out WagerTalk TV and Wednesday afternoon for that show. And don't forget, when you hit subscribe, you click the bell as well. You never miss any of the shows when they go live, and they're archived 24/7 here as well. So thumbs up, like, and comment below on this show as well. Who do you like in baseball? Live chat or in the YouTube comments afterwards. Who are your play-on-play against teams? And, guys, I don't think spring training numbers mean too much. But guess who had the best two records in each league here in the spring training? Orioles 23-6, Dodgers 14-5 in the Cactus League. Orioles won the Grapefruit League. Obviously, they both have playoff level talent, which plays like half the games maybe. But they're also two good minor league programs. The Orioles, my Norfolk Tides, AAA champs last year. So if it's any indicator, Baltimore, LA looking strong again. Johnny Detroit's Tigers 20-9, runner up in the Grapefruit League for what it's worth. Brian Leonard, what else do you have going on at WagerTalk.com?
I'm actually passing on today's limited card, but I do want to talk a little about college basketball. Having a lot of success in the Big Dance. 86% winners in the Big Dance. Swept yesterday, 3-0 day earlier than that. I'm up to number 2 in net profit in college basketball this season. Just been a hell of a run on the hard court. I don't have anything up as of yet, but I'm going to take a real good look at these games, and hopefully we continue going on in this regard. And we've got some nice specials coming up, I believe, on Thursday for baseball, and we'll get into that as the week goes on. But, really looking forward to the rest of the week here in basketball, hockey, and Major League Baseball, once again, on Thursday for just about every team.
Yeah, it's Brian Leonard, and once again, you can check him out in both the baseball and college basketball shows on Wednesday later this week, so be sure to click subscribe and hit that bell for when those shows are on throughout the week. Teddy, we're going to finish with some hockey with our resident Canadian. There's no Prez this week, so we got to get a Canadian to talk some hockey. Carmine Bianco will be on in a moment. But before we do so, let's circle back to the NBA. 11 games tonight. NBA Tip-Off Show daytime edition and nighttime editions are both available here on Wager Talk TV for Monday. So, Teddy, it's very appropriate you give us a big game breakdown for one of the games tonight on Monday.
Absolutely. Big game breakdown. Let's talk Pacers and Clippers late night West Coast bailout special, or add-on special if you had a great night. Right now, look at the Wager Talk live odds screen. The Clips, it's a split line here. -5.5, -6. So if you want LA, lay 5.5. If you want Indiana, take +6. Both lines available right now. Total sitting in the 233 range. Before I get into the analysis, I do want to let you guys know, use Teddy7 at checkout to get $30 off a 7-day all-access pass. We've been running real good. 8-2 over the last 3 days. 22-8, 73% over the last 10 days across sports. 20-6 college hoops since March 14th. 4-1 my last 5 in the NBA. And 58% up 199 units in the NBA since 2022. So there is an extended track record of success in this particular sport. The Clippers were 34-15 on February 5th. They're 10-11 since that time. So for the last 7 weeks, LA has played sub 500 basketball. Who've they beaten during that span? Those 10 wins. the Blazers twice, the Bulls twice, the Pistons, the Wizards, the Grizzlies. That's 7 of the wins coming against sub-500 teams. They had a 1-point win against Minnesota, a 5-point win against the Warriors, and a 6-point win against the Rockets. That's versus winning teams over the last 7 weeks. That's it for LA. You read the quotes from Ty Lue. They're not, we got to win games down the regular season. Quote, I just want us to lock in and be healthy. The West is tough anyway, no matter who we play or where you play. Whether you start at home, start on the road, it's going to be tough. So these late season wins and losses don't really bother me or faze me in any way. We've just got to be healthy. I still got full confidence in this team and full confidence in what we can do. LA's lost their last 4 home games in straight up fashion, including -9 versus the slumping 76ers yesterday, -9.5 versus the struggling Hawks. On the second of back-to-backs, the Clippers, 1-3 straight up, 0-4 ATS since the All-Star break. And with all Lue's talk about staying healthy on the second of back-to-backs here, I don't want any part of the Clippers laying points tonight. Give me Indiana plus the 6. That's a client play on Monday. And there's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Teddy Cover is giving you a free client play, a free best bet for tonight for his clients, free here on WagerTalk Today. If you haven't hit that thumbs up like, why not do it right now? As appreciated as you could be for a free client play here on WagerTalk TV. And once again, subscribe, hit the bell as well for all the other shows. And comment below, who do you like tonight in the NBA? Huge card, 11 games on the board. Let us know who you're looking at tonight in the NBA as well. We read all the comments and we reply back. All right, let's finish it out with the one other pro sport we haven't talked about, and that's the NHL. Carmine Bianco, I think a great Canadians, Phil Hartman, Wayne Gretzky, Carmine Bianco. He's in my top 3. We're going to bring him on the show right now. A true great human being, in all seriousness. Carm, welcome to the show. Limited NHL card. What do you want to start with?
And thanks for having me on, guys. And I appreciate the sentiment. We're going to start with the Vegas Golden Knights and the St. Louis Blues. Only a couple games. It's an unbalanced NHL schedule. Huge slate of games yesterday, huge slate of games tomorrow, but only 2 in between. But 2 games with that we're going to talk about that have serious playoff implications. This is a true 4-pointer tonight. Vegas heads on the road after a 4-game homestand, and a somewhat successful one, I want to call it, having gone 3-1. They lose just to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are playing some extremely good hockey right now. And, you know, the one thing about the Vegas Golden Knights, a lot of people are looking at the price and thinking, my God, how are the Vegas Golden Knights -145 on the road, because they're not a winning team on the road? And that's true. They struggled on the road, but the Vegas Golden Knights seem to win games when they matter most. And this is one of the ones that matter most. You look at this 4-game homestand that they just had, and even missing Pietrangelo on defense, they played so well defensively during those 4 games. They allowed no more than 22 shots on goal in those 4 games. It was 21, 21, 22, and 22. You're going to win a lot of games in the NHL if you can keep your opponents at 22 shots or less and get a good goaltending performance. Now, it's Logan Thompson is the listed starter for tonight, confirmed starter. Aiden Hill, injury. We don't know what's going on with him. He didn't make the trip. They called up Yuri Patera from their minor league affiliate. So that's not good news for the Vegas Golden Knights as far as their goaltending goes. But this is Thompson's chance to get out there and say, I want the playing time. I want to be your playoff goalie. And we'll see how they go from here. Last 3 visits to St. Louis, they have won all 3 starts, scoring an average of 6 goals per game in those ones. If you're surprised about the -145 price, don't be surprised if by game time this is -155 in the -155 range. We're seeing some money come in right now in the live markets across on the WagerTalk live lines, and I think rightfully so. This is a game in which while the Blues are playing some extremely good hockey at the moment, I think Vegas is a better team. I think they're going to use that 4-game homestand where they win 3-1 to springboard into a very good road trip. It's a true 4-pointer, and as I said, Vegas seems to win the ones that matter most. I think Vegas is the player, -145.
So the race for home ice advantage in the NHL playoffs, it's tight, man. There are 5 teams with exactly 97 points and 2 teams with exactly 98 points. So 7 teams locked in this battle for home ice advantage. One of those teams is the Vancouver Canucks. Yet they're only minus 125, minus 130 at home tonight against the LA Kings. What gives? Why is this line so short for Vancouver as home chalk? And are they bettable in this price range, or are they this short because we want to fade them tonight against LA?
I think you can make good cases for fading them. Listen, the Vancouver Canucks has had a fantastic season, better than anyone thought, and which is one of the reasons why Rick Tocchet is up for and the prohibitive favorite for Coach of the Year, playing fantastic all season long, and they've kept one of those top 2 spots all season long, 98 points. We might, and I hate to use, and I talked about it on Puck Time today, I hate to use the regression moniker or put the tag on a team, but the Canucks 5 or 6 games ago, Thatcher Demko, their goalie who's had a fantastic season, gets injured. They proceed to lose the next couple of games, and then they go on a 3-0 run. They won 3 games in a row at home. But they weren't facing playoff teams. They faced the Buffalo Sabres, they faced the Montreal Canadiens, they faced the Calgary Flames, and they kept those teams to 17, or 2 of those 3 games, they kept those teams to 17 or fewer shots on goal. They're now getting an LA Kings team who is a playoff team, a team that's also in the middle of a playoff race. Every win is important for the LA Kings. They're on 85 points in 7th place, 2 points up on Vegas, and only 6 points up on St. Louis. And we just talked about those 2 teams playing tonight. So one of them is going to get a little closer. They're plus 110, and I like this price. They're playing some very good defense. Over their last 7 games in which they've gone 5-2, their expected XG against was only 18.03 goals of XG allowed, which is 2.57, an average of 2.57. If you can keep a team, an opponent's XG under 3 and close to that 2.5, you're going to win a lot of games in the NHL if your team can score goals. And it's one thing about this LA Kings team that I've mentioned is I don't always think they can score goals, but they get 6 against Minnesota. They get 4 against Tampa Bay in a game in which I took them to beat Tampa Bay. 10 goals the last couple of games. Their scoring's coming around. Their defense is playing well. They are a team that I think is going to get on a nice little run with a favorable schedule. I think it begins tonight, and we're going to get plus money on this. There's not much line movement in this game, and I don't expect much line movement in this game. It may go up or down a nickel, but that's pretty much it. I think the Kings are the right team in this spot.
It's Carmine Bianco breaking down the NHL tonight on Monday. Don't forget to check him out throughout the week on Puck Time as well here on WagerTalk TV. And Carm, red hot, what is it, 17-3 the last 20 NHL plays? I mean, you're just seeing it well. What else you got going on at WagerTalk.com, and what any kind of special offers do you have?
Yeah, if I'm gonna just to throw in a quick little joke, if I remove the teams from Alberta from the last 20 games, I'm 17-0. I've lost twice with Edmonton and once with Calgary. I am not a fan of Alberta, other than when they have the Stampede. So other than that, but a couple games on the card for me tonight, a couple plays over at WagerTalk, but I just told you who they are, so no sense in buying them. I'm going to have a very good slate of action for tomorrow. There's, I think, 13 games in the NHL, somewhere around there, and I'm going to have those plays up a little later on. Soccer, it's the international break. There hasn't been much going on. I had a couple plays on this past weekend that both won, and I'll have some loaded later on for this coming weekend. But it's full focus on the NHL, and then, of course, the baseball season that starts shortly. So a great deal. You can get the rest of the NHL and all the playoffs right through the Stanley Cup Finals for $249. It's, I think, $335 is just the playoffs. So it is a great deal. $249 gets you every single play for the rest of the NHL season, which is 3 weeks left, and then all the playoffs right through the Stanley Cup Finals. No coupon needed. You'll find it on my page.
And once again, if you haven't hit the like button yet, he just gave you NHL plays in both games tonight, and this guy's on a 17-3 hockey run his last 20. Teddy gave you a free NBA play, client play in the big game breakdown. So once again, thumbs up, like if you're finding the show useful. Make sure you subscribe to Wager Talk TV and hit the bell as well. And comment below. We do read the comments and reply back. Really love the support. Who are you looking at tonight on Monday? Which baseball futures do you like? Hey, some advanced Sweet 16 chime in as well. I've got an NBA best bet tonight, and don't look now, but I'm number one in units won this year in the NBA. Sides and totals combined. Now, 93% of those plays have been sides, and I've got another side going tonight. Sides alone are 50-32 this year in the NBA, number one in units won. So check out my NBA Moneymaker tonight on Monday. Also, a bonus free NBA play on my page, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, let us know what you've got and take us home while you're at it.
Yeah, we got 2 best bets in the NBA for tonight. You guys just got one of them. Get the other one right now over at WagerTalk.com. We have been running real good across sports, and particularly, well, NBA and college have both been great. I will not be on tomorrow's show. It's going to be Merrill and Andy Lang. No Prez, no Teddy. I get to go and meet with my son's principal at 8:30 a.m. That should be fun. You don't want me to be your dad. I'm going to be a little bitch tomorrow morning. That being said, I won't be here tomorrow, so it will be Merrill and Lang. I will be back on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, moving forward. Thank you so much for watching WagerTalk Today, each and every weekday, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon back east. And don't forget WagerTalk last call on the weekend. Saturday morning, that one goes a little bit earlier, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 for you back east. Enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers.